All right. Hello, hello. Apologies for being just a couple of minutes late. The second I was about to go live, I had a curtain fall. So I had to put that back up really quick. But we're here, or I'm here. Hopefully everyone here is here. And yeah, we're back on House and Fata Morgana. Oh, I'm fine. It was more annoying than anything trying to get it back up because I am 5 foot nothing and curtains are tall. Yeah, that's fair. We're really not no more late than usual. Usually when I'm solo, I try to hit on time. But when there's several of us, it's hard to kind of get everyone in line on time. Um, but yeah. So, I don't really have any thing to start with. If you're new here, I'm Kels. Nice to meet you, see you, whatever. You're going to hear me talk a lot and read. So, let's recap and then just get into it. So, Jacopo was having a bad day and found Morgana in the rain. They argued immediately, but he bought her an umbrella anyway. He's been building his company in France for the past 3 years and came across Pauline and Yukimasa's meeting. Maria instantly got off on the wrong foot with him and she blamed him for her misfortune, so he bought her pity whiskey and taught her how to drink properly. Okay. Ugh. Totally fine, just inhaled wrong apparently. Give me just a second for the tears to get on my eyes. Um, and taught her how to drink properly, sparking their friendship. Morgana went back to the bench in the rain, so Jacopo offered her a stay at his place since he doesn't believe she's an adult. He made her take a shower and fixed her dinner, but they ended up arguing about her modesty. She questioned how humbly he plays off his kindness towards her. She instinctively flagged him as Italian, and he didn't want to talk about his mafia heritage backstory. She's technologically illiterate, and they talked music over dinner. In this time period, Morgana has still had still has bad markings, but on her body instead of her face, and a voice called Jacopo out for inflicting those in their past life. He felt immense guilt from his dreams, and she warmed up to him a bit when he expressed remorse and concern. That night, she dreamed about their souls' conversation in fragment. She decided to squat in his apartment, and he took a day off to spend time with her. Thank you for the bless you. It wasn't a sneeze. I just apparently don't know how to breathe. That is not what I meant to do. I'm just off on the wrong foot today. I apologize. All right. Inspect your memories. There we go. Oh, well, thank you. Okay. Here we are. Reincarnation. Hopefully, I get more into it, or, on it than I am right now. But I couldn't remember the last time I'd walked with someone for something other than work. My natural walking speed was a good deal faster than hers, so if I wasn't careful, I was likely to end up leaving her behind. I had to make an effort to reduce my pace to match hers, which turned out to be much more difficult than I would have imagined. But curiously, it wasn't a kind of aggravating kind of difficulty. Yeah, hold her hand, Jacopo. I will say, as someone who has shorter legs than most of the general population, it is a good way to make sure that you're keeping pace with someone. It was an entirely new experience and kind of enjoyable for it. Christ, my whole world seemed to be flipped on its head. I never did get the chance to ask. Do you live in Paris too? No, a little south of here. That narrows it down. Whatever, not gonna pry. So I take it you're not terribly familiar with Paris then? In which case I can show you around some while we walk. There we go, or give her a piggyback ride. Exactly. Despite her insistence she was only going to help me with my shopping, the girl made no objections to the detour. First, I took her to the Champs-Élysées, one of the 12 avenues that meet at the Arc de Triomphe, perhaps the most recognizable monument in all of Paris. The Arc, constructed in the neoclassical style, sits at the end of the Place Charles de Gaulle, formerly known as the Place de l'Étoile. As we approach the Arc, its full proper name, the Arc du Triomphe de l'Étoile, I decided to tell her a bit about its history. They're like switching languages on me, and every single time I have problems. It's like, wait a second, what language am I speaking now? The monument was commissioned by Napoleon to commemorate his victory in the Battle of Austerlitz, which took place not far from a town now known as Slakov Ubronia in the Czech Republic. However, its construction was a rather troubled process, and he did not end up living long enough to see it completed. After a few minutes, I realized I was just rattling off unimportant trivia and probably boring the girl to death. But, much to my surprise, she was listening quite intently. She seemed, against all odds, to actually have been enjoying our sudden sightseeing tour. But when I asked if she wanted to climb the Ark, she gave me a disapproving glare and muttered, "I prefer quiet places." That made things quite difficult, as Paris was always teeming with tourists. Our options were to either head somewhere on the outskirts of the city or find a small park tucked away somewhere tourists were unlikely to stumble on. Maybe that was why she had chosen that park to stay in. So instead of going anywhere in particular, we just wandered around the city a bit, stopping by to look at a few of the churches we passed. Isn't that the actual tourist experience? Realizing that you don't have a plan and just wandering around at whatever you think about? Jesus, you don't talk at all, do you, child? Never in my life have I seen a girl look so damned forlorn while sightseeing in Paris. If you want a conversation partner, then find someone else to invite on your walks. Besides, it's not like you say anything of value either. You're just griping all the time. That was not a gripe. It was a casual observation. There we go. The tourist experience is trying and failing to get laid with the locals.
Ah, yes, very casual indeed. So, where are we going next?
Hmm. Is there anything you want to see? I might be willing to consider it if you ask nicely.
There you go again. Always so insufferably haughty. I don't even know what there is to see, honestly. As long as it's someplace quiet, I don't care where we go.
You keep saying that, but I don't think there is any such thing as a quiet tourist attraction. Even historical monuments are usually swarmed with dumb teens making stupid faces into their phone cameras. Okay, Grandpa.
You act like that's the only option. But I never said I wanted to go sightseeing.
Then what do you want to do? Doesn't have to be anything specific, just give me something to work with.
Nothing really. This whole thing has just been you dragging me around the city, so you decide what you want to do.
Oh, for God's sake. You could try showing a little appreciation. I'm doing all this for you, you realize. Here I am using my day off to show you around, and you look like you're at a goddamn funeral. Maybe act like you're enjoying it for 1 minute?
Why should I have to act like I'm enjoying myself when I never once asked you to drag me out to a bunch of tourist traps? That was all you.
Yeah, you're right. It was all me. I dragged you out here with no consideration for you, and I'm very sorry. There, you happy? Christ, don't give me that look. I didn't take you out to get mad at you. I just wanted to do something that might be fun for you. Never mind. Forget I said anything. Let's call it a day and head home already. God, I don't know what got into me, but I would never do this normally. What? You have something you want to say? Go right ahead. Bitch me out as much as you want.
Oh no, not at all. I'm just, well,
Oh. I didn't expect your stomach to finish your sentence for you.
come on, don't laugh. I didn't do it on purpose. And normally I'm more careful about.
Yeah, I hear you. You wouldn't let yourself go so long without eating. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was already midday. Of course, you're not going to be able to come up with somewhere you want to go on an empty stomach. Okay, just give me a minute. I'll get us a reservation at a nice Italian restaurant. And Jacopo, is the only thing that you eat Italian food?
But please, it doesn't have to be anything fancy like that, really.
In Italian restaurants, no fancier than anywhere else I could take you. What, are you worried about how much it'll cost? You're a kid. Leave the money concerns to the adults.
I am not a kid.
Right. You're in your 20s. How quickly I forget. Then, as an adult woman, you should know it's your place to let the man pay for your meal. You hear me?
Weren't you just saying we were going to head back home, though? That was the plan until your stomach objected. And if you're that hungry, we should go eat now rather than to wait for you to starve in the time it takes to go shopping, get home, and make something. I'm not going to starve. Ugh. Fine. All right. I'll go wherever.
Yeah, same old Jacopo.
Can't decide what to do. Can't decide how to act. You're rather indecisive, aren't you? Can we please go somewhere small at least? I really don't do well in places with lots of people.
Is that so? You certainly are a strange child. Well, I don't mind either way. But what are our options for smaller establishments even? Wait.
Right as I was about to say we wouldn't find something without a bit of looking, I caught sight of a sign in a little alleyway. It was a cafe, so far out of the way as to be nigh unnoticeable. Perhaps they simply couldn't secure a better location. Paris was a war ground, after all. It was going to be near impossible for them to draw in customers, and for that reason, exactly the kind of place the girl was looking for. After asking if she wanted to check it out, we turned into the quiet alleyway. On the sign outside the cafe was a handwritten lunch menu. Nothing about it drew the eye at all. I wondered if they even wanted to attract customers. Through the window, I could see a single waitress sitting with her elbow on the counter and her chin resting in her hand. The lighting was poor and the decor several decades outdated, and not in a classy vintage way, but poor anachronistic taste. And above all, it was barren, at lunch, on a weekend, when it should be at its busiest. Frankly, on my own, I would have never given the place a second look. Clearly, there must have been something wrong with it for no one to be there. Hey! Okay, after ending Requiem for Innocence, you should play a short story called The Revenant Stream. It's fragment all over again, but from a different perspective. It adds whole lot to Jacopo and Morgana. It'll clear up your doubts about what the dream really is in their situation. Interesting. I'm gonna have to look it up after stream because I don't know where to find it. Um, but yeah, I will look it up after this stream. Thank you for letting me know. I wish that there was a little bit easier way to kind of track how and what you're supposed to play when. I feel like I have somehow played the wrong thing several times now. Also, welcome. Hi. It's in the main menu. Okay. Okay, give me just a second. I am going to save and take a look. Okay. Do 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 do. So we take another detour. It's fine. We'll get through reincarnation someday. Is it in the short stories? That's fair. Yeah, like Kingdom Hearts, even with everything presented in an order, you need an experienced fan to tell you the correct order to experience it. Alright, the vast majority of happenings in this world are not recorded in stories, either too trifling or adding no meaning to our lives. These facts of life are coldly cast aside, with only the tiniest sliver deemed worthy enough. Each day we relentlessly— oh no. I did not start reading that quickly enough. Tales afforded not their moment in the limelight, left to waste away in obscurity. Okay, I'm so glad I got a trophy for that. Okay. Okay, hey, there's Remnant's Dream. I wish they would put it before Revelations then on the menu. But yeah, I think let's do Remnant's Dream really quick. Because why not? We'll go with the expert opinion. We probably should read all of these, yeah. uh, Farewell, Jacopo. Until our souls cross paths once more in the boundless sphere of fate. Goodbye, Morgana. She believed that was the end of it all. That by releasing their souls from the curse, they would all return to their rightful places. That the realm containing the cursed mansion would dissipate, and the natural order of the world would take care of the rest. Both she and the good hearted young man who had guided her to her salvation believed that. But the young man underestimated how strong his love was, and the girl underestimated how wholly and thoroughly he blamed himself. He sent her off and then remained in place. He could not forgive himself for what he had done, and so he did not deserve to move on. All right, the Revenant's dream. The next thing she realized, she was in a field of gold. Wheat rolling in the wind like a golden ocean. The sky blue as sapphire. The breeze almost startlingly warm. It was an unbelievably gentle view, and one she did not recognize. She had never seen this place before, never been there before. Yet, looking out at it now, she felt emotional. It was almost terrifyingly beautiful. As if drawn in by it, the girl took a step forward. With each subsequent step, the soft sound of crunching beneath her feet grew more distinct. Evidently, her soul had begun taking physical form, and it was her body from life that the golden ocean created for her. She raised her left arm, which had been severed before she was placed in captivity. It was whole. Still uncertain, she placed a hand on her cheek. There, she found none of the scars or the rough texture of the markings that had caused her so much torment in life. What's going on here? She was perplexed. Where was this place? When was it? And what was she doing here? In that form, no less. The girl continued walking, in spite of her consternation, in spite of herself at that. It was the gentlest domains that had always caused her the most pain. The most pleasant memories were the sharpest knives. If her life had taught her one thing, it was that. And from then on, she had done everything in her power to eliminate those things. Which was why she had locked the warmly inviting master bedroom in the cursed mansion and threw the key into the painting. But now, she was being drawn into another such realm. She felt as though she needed to push forward. And soon, as she approached the far edge of the wheat field, she caught sight of a figure. Seeing it, she stopped dead with a gulp. She knew what this world was. It was his world. Much like she had crafted her own realm to contain her curse, he too had built himself a world of illusion. Upon reaching this realization, a flood of images and memories rushed over her. But this was not unusual, as she had experienced projections of others' memories in the cursed mansion as well. The living and the dead perceived the world differently. For while the living were bound by their bodies, the dead were bound by recollections and emotions. Nonetheless, it had been Michael, not her, who had dived into the memories directly. So this was her first time truly experiencing the phenomenon herself. Though she was uncertain as to whether the experience was intensified by her own involvement in these specific memories, they were of her as a child, of the young man applying ointment to her face every day for 3 years. She would claim it unnecessary, insult him, complain in any way she could, but still the young man came back the next day. Even on days she fought to the point of truly angering him, he still applied the ointment. He was a strange man, she thought. For what purpose did he pay her so much mind? No other men wanted to get near her. The hideous scars covering her face were quite an effective deterrent. And most would probably cut off their own hands before volunteering to touch them. He alone was different, though. One day he chastised her for making the trek to the graveyard every day, in rain or snow or anything in between. But she realized now that his criticism applied to him as well. In the pouring rain or in the midst of a blizzard, in winds so strong they could knock a grown man to the ground, or even when he was hurt or sick himself, he never missed a day coming to find her at the graveyard. Next, she saw the rising sun, being carried on his back, traveling a different path home than the one she knew. The stench of decomposing flesh, unavoidable in alleys of the slums. Her surroundings utterly repugnant, yet the sunrise oddly enchanting. The sun's light even reaches this deep, dark corner of the world. I mean, of course it does, but I don't know, for some reason it seems particularly bright today. She said nothing in response, but she felt the same way. She had spent her whole life looking down at her feet, never taking the time to look up and appreciate the sky. And she likely never would have either. Never been able to see the beauty in the rising sun without a nudge. And subsequently, whenever the evil lord would show himself in her dreams, she was able to close her eyes and block him out, until eventually she was no longer able to remember his face or the sound of his voice. Her wounds were at last beginning to heal. He had given her so much: an ordinary life, an ordinary happiness, the freedom from having to be special, and warmth she had never before known. But those memories only served to salt her wounds. Every image of the slave boy showing her kindness was another crack in her foundation. I can't. He killed me. With the same hands he had used to treat her wounds, he later took her life. It tainted all her memories, shattered the illusion of warmth, ruined her all the way down to her soul, turned everything into hatred and anger. A fury so intense that even the young saint's conditional love was insufficient to assuage it. The only reason she had managed to maintain her composure at the very end was because Michael was there with her, holding her hand. She would not have gone to see him at all otherwise. But now, she was alone, so she would leave. She had no interest in seeing that man again. And when she made to head back the way she had come, she caught a glance at the shadowy figure's condition. It was beaten and broken, crumbling away. She looked down in silence on the shadow, which barely maintained its own form. She had seen souls decay to this state before, such as Michael's when he arrived at the mansion after centuries lost, broken down and reformed again and again, with only Giselle's voice as his guide. By the time he found his way there, he was unrecognizable. Hardly a wisp of a spirit, incapable of individual thought, blindly following Giselle's lead. She understood why Michael's soul had taken so much damage. He had been abused and mistreated to an unimaginable degree his entire life. It made sense that he would wish for an ending more permanent than even death. But him? What are you doing so broken? She could not understand what had brought him to this point. He was the perpetrator, a monster. No matter how kind he had been to her before, that did not change what he had done after that. So what did he think he was doing looking so mangled and beaten? If she left him there, before long, his soul would disappear for good, rubbed out of existence, never to return to the boundless sphere of fate. Good, let him. She bit her lip. Yes, let him. Then she would be free of his torture once and for all. She would never have to see him again, never have to torment herself with thoughts of him. And what a relief that would be. So she tried to turn back. But her body would not let her. An emotion she did not understand had welled up in her breast. It was pity, though she could not put a name to it herself. It was an emotion she had never felt during her time as the witch. And in fact, were the witch here, she would have cackled joyously at the sight, pointing a skeletal finger at the pathetic thing he had become and telling him how much he deserved it. But she was no longer that witch. And furthermore, she had been blessed with unconditional love by Michael and Giselle. And the benevolent portion of her soul, which she had rent from herself to create the white-haired girl, was beginning to return to its rightful place. She thought she heard a voice from within, telling her that only she could save him. She frowned. Why should she have to save him after all the pain and suffering he had caused for her? The voice within spoke. Michael had stepped forward to save her after all the pain and suffering she had put him through. Giselle, too, held no grudge after being imprisoned in the mansion by her for centuries, happily joining Michael on his quest. She took a single step forward. The wheat swayed as she did, making the scene even more dreamlike. Initially, she had been irritated to find him here, trying to hide from his sins in this realm of illusion. But now, she was beginning to realize that was not the case. His memories and feelings flowed over her, with more clarity this time. This was what he could have had if he had not made all those mistakes. And this was the place he had hoped to show her one day. He was not hiding from his sins. He was attempting to atone for them. He had condemned his sins, lamented his failures, and forced himself to look at this vision of the world he had let slip through his fingers, again and again, until it had destroyed his soul. This was his punishment for himself. And not only for what he had done to Morgana, but her other half, the white-haired girl, as well. She had said in a letter that she wished to see his homeland, and he had failed to see that through as well. Twice he had broken what he was supposed to care about most. Twice he had crushed her, and he could never forgive himself for that. Not even after she had released him from her curse. You truly are the biggest fool in all the world.
Exactly. Abby and Morgana are just fusing back together. I guess that makes sense. Like, I hadn't really thought about what it would be like when the white-haired girl sort of retook her place, but yeah, I can see the forgiveness.
She had never, in all her time, seen more of a disaster of a man. Though she was beginning to realize that part of the reason he had done this to himself was because she had rejected his offer to make amends, told him she would not punish him any further. Not to mention, he was not entirely at fault for his actions in his second life. She had wished to see his life in ruins. She had, in a sense, placed him on that path herself. But he was not one who could place the blame for his actions on others. Everything was always his responsibility, and his alone. He was like that in his first life, and his second, and in the illusory alternate scenario where Michael had intervened. Ultimately, I'm the one responsible, he said on their march to atonement. And I suppose, to make sure their next lives go a little better, he said, excluding himself from any potential redemption. So what, though? That doesn't change what he did. Are you saying I should have sent him off with a smile? That I should have to set aside my hatred to make the man who hurt me feel better? She took another step towards the amorphous shadow, still unsure of her own position. The closer she got, the more she wanted to run away. What would she say? What would she do? She had not an inkling of an idea, not a single fully formed thought about what came after this. The shade noticed her, lifting its head. She tensed up. It was hideous, hardly even recognizable as human. But she could tell, somehow, that it was smiling at her. It must have been made up of all the things he had wanted to do for her, she thought. The shade seemed to think she was part of the illusion. In that case, she thought, in that case, she could just play along with it. Pretending she was another phantom in this dreamscape would reduce the pressure on her, giving her time to think. Though, in truth, she likely wanted to indulge in that fantasy herself. The long-lost possibility of nothing going wrong, of him finding their homeland. Even knowing it was all a sham, an insignificant sliver of a dream, she probably still wanted to partake in its warmth. And maybe then, she would be able to give him a genuine smile. So, what's on the agenda for the day? Initially, she only intended to play along with the illusion. But in time, she found herself being drawn into the dream world as well. A fantasy where he had never become the Lord, she never the witch, and the both of them lived uneventful lives in their undiscovered homeland. It was pleasant and peaceful, and she soon began enjoying it in earnest. She had turned off her mind, simply started accepting things as they happened, which she was only able to do because he was hardly recognizable as him. She felt like she had really gone back to being a 16-year-old girl, like she had grown up a normal life, not filled with tragedy. And oh, how wonderful that would have been if it could have been true. He asked her to sing for him, so she brought him into the shade of a large tree. He told her he had borrowed a lute, but he held nothing in his amorphous hands, so she merely played along. In his vision of this realm, there were others like us for him to borrow from. They sat down in the shade of the tree and sang, only her voice to carry the tune. Like Michael in the same condition, the shade was barely able to produce any coherent sound, let alone music. But still, she could tell what he was trying to say, and how he was saying it. The longer she spent in the realm of illusion, the more her own state of mind reverted to those days. The 3 years when she had been able to experience happiness like anyone else, but continuing until she reached the age of 16. She was smiling and laughing, though she hardly realized it herself. Nor did she recall that she had explicitly told him previously that she could not smile for him. In time, she even found herself able to speak of her younger days, something she had not told him even in life. How she was known as a saint, how her blood had miraculous powers, and the people of her village began worshipping her for it. She had, on some level, wanted to talk about that with him in life, wanted to open herself up to him more, wanted him to know more of who she really was. You're just an ordinary girl. He spoke in an unearthly voice, like thousands of rocks scraping against one another. But to her ears, it was the sound of the young slave man's voice. His slightly exasperated, always gentle tone. She smiled. You've said as much so many times now, I'm almost beginning to believe it, she said, wondering if he would have been the one to give her warmth if things had gone differently. Obviously, that was but a hypothetical future, and one they could have never reached, no less. But she had softened up enough to entertain such silly fantasies. She had also thought about her homeland, not the small, isolated village where she had been born, but someplace farther up her bloodline, her real father's home. Would you like to meet him? She was telling him of her father when he suddenly asked her that. She was not sure, and she racked her brain in consideration. It was not something she really needed to think about. There was no family here for her to find anymore, after all. But she had indulged herself so deeply in the past that reality was not a concern. She spoke of her father with a hint of sadness in her voice, to which the shade responded with a sudden surge of rage. The whole dreamscape warped around him, and the metallic smell of blood permeated the region. He wanted to seek out her father and met out divine justice, and the world twisted to fit his image. There we go. Her father's homeland, heaven. Um, honestly, like, don't get me wrong, real father, kind of a dick for just leaving. But honestly, I want more revenge against her mother, just personally. Like, I don't know. I feel like one sin is probably worse than the other. Any form of violence is forbidden, she shouted, attempting to calm his fury. Not even if it's for my sake, she continued. Any time he had managed to obtain any form of power, it had led him down the path of destruction. He knew no other way to wield it. And because doing so had shown to be effective in accomplishing his immediate goals, he had never bothered to look for any other solutions, which ultimately resulted in him being unable to trust anyone, because he only understood power as a blunt object. He was a soft, cowardly man deep down. But because he learned to kill, I don't want you to hurt anyone else, ever again. The more he hurt others, the more he hurt himself. This was a lesson that was long, long overdue for him. The shadow stared at her in silence for several minutes, as the blood and fiery rage twisting the illusory realm slowly receded. When it was gone, the shade too seemed to have returned to normal, nodding and saying, "All right, I won't." She let out a sigh of relief. She had slipped entirely back into her childhood. They talked more about everything and nothing, such as the Midsummer Festival, the memory of which filled her with yearning for those times. When everyone was still together, him, his friend Maria, his companion Gratien, and the eternally cheerful Gerin. She was never terribly fond of gatherings of that many people, and that had not changed even now, but she was able to reminisce about it and admit that it had not been entirely awful, that it had been an important, formative moment of her youth, and probably the same for the rest of them as well. The three girls holding hands and dancing in a circle, him playing a tune on the lute, his friend providing a beat. It was a marvelous day. As she reflected, she realized he had been chasing overly ambitious dreams from the very beginning. All of his talk of going out into the world, of taking her with him, and he was no different here in this realm of illusion. Eventually, she grew tired of hearing his fantasies, telling him, "Climb down off your high horse and adjust." If he was going to keep chasing after stupid dreams, she would laugh at him every time. If he was going to keep chasing after impossible ideals, she would drag him back down to earth. That way, he would never. Then I'll just have to find a new dream. Excuse me? Her mouth hung open in a mix of exasperation and shock, and perhaps a trace of anger. She wanted to shout, tell him how all his idiotic dreams ended with him in shambles. But he seemed unable to pick up on her trepidation, continuing unfazed. "I'm going to win your heart." She stood aghast. That was the last thing she ever expected to hear from him, even knowing this whole world was his fantasy about what he wished he could have done for her. She was conflicted. She felt many things, but flattered was a line she would never cross. No matter how much she had reverted to her younger self here, her present self still remained. "You murdered me. There's nothing you can do to win my heart. Not a single thing." She found herself very close to saying what she felt, but she set her agitation aside to let the dream continue a bit longer. For her own peace of mind more than his. From that point, he became almost impressively brazen, even asking her to call him by his name. To which she frowned and said, in no uncertain terms, "Why would I waste my breath?" Visibly disheartening him. After some time having to watch him mope, she could bear it no longer and attempted to raise a new subject. But whether she asked him about learning to play the lute or going fishing together, the only response she received was a half-hearted nod. She sighed at a complete loss, and then the shadow spoke. "Will you say my name?" Again? Why was he so fixated on such a stupid, insignificant thing? But as he continued, she realized his request was more pitiful and heartfelt than she had ever heard from him. "I don't want you to forget." She gasped. "I don't want you to forget me again." Cracks developed in the shadow. "I don't want you to forget what I look like." It wavered, shook, crumbled. "The sound of my voice." But still he pleaded desperately. "Or how I feel about you." The man who refused to lean on anyone was begging for her validation. "I don't want you to forget what we talked about." They were all things she had long since forgotten about him. What kind of man I was. Things she had locked away in the deepest recesses of her mind. Or all the time we shared together. Memories overflowing with so much warmth they hurt. Please. She cast it all out. His name, his face, his everything. "Don't forget me." Which was what had allowed her to mistake him for the Lord. She felt a chill listening to the shade beg and plead endlessly. What was she supposed to do here? At the very least, this meant the end of the peaceful, trouble-free illusion. "Why would you ask me that now?" she said, her voice strained. I was hoping to... She was hoping to bask in the illusion a while longer. The shadow said nothing. It simply sat there, waiting for her to answer. She mulled over the question for a while and then took another step toward it. She was close enough to touch it now, but she would never do that. A feeling welled up in her breast, a mixture of wanting to scream, burst into tears, and throw things around like a small child. She forced it back, looking down on the shade. If I had remembered, would anything have been any different? Could we have not ended up so far down the wrong path? If I had gone and found you, would that have stopped you from becoming what you did? There were 1,000 things she could have done differently. If, after taking up at the cottage on the lake, she had gone into town even once, she could have found out they had a new lord. Maybe he was the one who had sent that knight to visit her cottage, who she had sent away without talking to. Not to mention, if she had only told him about her childhood, the rumors about her blood having healing powers, he would have been able to make the connection between her and the lakeside witch. If she had done something, maybe she could have stopped him from veering off the straight and narrow. In fact, she was likely the only person who could have stopped him. Why am I blaming myself for his mistakes? He's the only one responsible for his choices. She did not know what to do. She had been at a loss ever since learning the truth. The answers had only brought her more pain, and so she had buried them away somewhere, out of sight. Ah, that must be why. That must have been why she had not yet returned to her rightful place. While she had been brought unto salvation by the hands of an angel, ceased being the witch, the girl inside was as wounded and suffering as ever. Can I hold your hand? The shade resumed its pleading. Its desperation clawed at her chest. And so, rather than coldly denying the request, she found herself saying, "Do as you please." The shadow slowly extended its hand up to hers, as if scared. It was not playing its part very well. This was supposed to be a dream where nothing had gone wrong between them, after all. But the illusion had begun to give way to harsh reality. The reality of having murdered the girl he loved. The reality of having been brutally abused and killed by the man she had leaned on for support. They had both once cared for each other in a very similar way. Yet the end result was not love, but terrible tragedy. He was terrified to show someone affection with hands that had only ever brought destruction. And so before he did, he said, "I promised I wouldn't touch you without permission." She knew it was just an excuse, though, that he was simply afraid, worried about putting his bloodied hands on her, that he might hurt her again, that he might corrupt her, that he had no right to. But he overcame all that, gently placing his arms around her, as if he had been waiting centuries for this moment. It was an embrace of many things: love for her, deep regret, and, most of all, atonement. He's wanted to do this. In his arms, she could feel everything he felt. Since the day I locked his soul in that mansion. She thought back to that time, the unfathomable amount of time she spent as the witch, a force of pure hatred and vengeance. His was the last soul she entrapped, and when she did, he was little more than an amorphous shadow. It took many, many years for him to regain a human form, but even then he was unable to move or speak. He simply wailed for something incomprehensible at her, again and again. At the time, I thought he was saying how much he hated me. But she was wrong. He had simply wanted to atone, but he had no idea how. Look at you, a grown man shaking like a fawn. As the shadow embraced her, it trembled, sobbing loudly into her shoulder. She had never seen him cry before, though she was unsure if this counted, since she could only feel it through the nebulous shade. Sometimes I can't tell if you have a heart of stone or of glass. Her entire body went limp. All of the tension in her nerves released at once, and she felt a massive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Though, I suppose I'm not terribly different in that regard. Unable to even speak my heart unless there's no one else around. unable to face you except through this childish fantasy, not even able to show any vulnerability. Maybe. She hated to even entertain the thought, but perhaps they were more similar than she wanted to admit. Sometime long ago, in the memories she had banished away, he told her that being close made people more open with each other. And it turned out he was right about that. She began to speak, to tell him the truth of how she felt, letting spill forth the raw pain within, holding nothing back. She told him how she despised him more than anything in the world, because he showed her happiness and then the depths of despair, that she had no idea what to do with him, how she did regret some of her actions, such as misdirecting her anger. He was consumed by regret over what he had done to her, but he was not the only one who had regrets. As their minds and spirits intermingled, the true shape of her wounds grew apparent. He had hurt her, but she had hurt him too. She had blamed him not only for his own sins, but the sins of another man as well. And for that she had laughed at him, cursed him, mocked him for trying to show something resembling care for another human being. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. I should have known better than anyone how much he was capable of caring, though.
Yeah, I mean, they both did fuck up. I mean, granted, one of them fucked up after getting an arm removed and, really not in the best of terms, but they just hurt each other. Like a lot.
She thought back to the decisive moment. Knowing the truth now, she finally understood the full effect of the things she had said, to an even greater degree than Michael had told her. She She had told the man who spent 3 years looking after her, coming to apply ointment to her scarred face, rain or snow, that she despised him with all her soul, that he had ruined her life. She had not been seeing clearly at the time, but he had been teetering on the edge as well. And her saying that had been the final push. It was my words that ultimately pushed you over the edge, wasn't it? How had it all ended up like this? Why did they have to hurt each other so much? What was the turning point that sent them so far off the path? He continued holding on to her for some time, pleading for a chance to make amends, spilling his heart, clinging to her like a little child. It was something he could have never done in life, or even in death. It was only after repeatedly crushing himself beneath overwhelming regret until he was mangled and hardly recognizable that he was able to show her his weakness, that he was able to show her his tears. But it was far too late. It was all over. Nothing he asked for was something she could give him. No matter how much he begged, she could never stop hating him, could never forgive him. Fissures began to form in her spirit. Memories of her youth brought with them emotions long lost, of the time she first directly acknowledged his kindness. It was a bitter, sweet, agonizing, suffocating, innocent feeling. Many, many ages ago, when I was still a child, I looked up to you. The sunrise she saw that morning carried on his back only seemed as beautiful as it did because he had shown it to her. She then grew to yearn the lost homeland he spoke of, admire his lofty dreams, and feel warmth in his hands as he spread the ointment. That was when the seed was planted, not only of the ability to feel joy, but love as well. I might have even had some fondness for you. And having said that, she noticed the clear droplets rolling down her cheeks. After Michael finished unveiling the truth, she shouted, "I cried for him!" in a frenzy, and those tears she had shed contained all her feelings for him. On the day of her 12th 12th birthday, that terrible, tragic day. She cried and told the man in the slave cart, "I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." And that was true. She was grateful to not only the young slave man, but the girls of the brothel as well. She had wanted to open up to them. But the larger portion of her tears were for just one person. She cried for him. She cried for the man who had spent so long trying to help her. She cried because she'd not been able to thank him. She cried because she believed him to be dead. She cried for him then. So, who did she cry for now? Were these tears for him as well? Were they for herself? No, they were for both of them. You know, this illusion, I think, is possibly like crueler than anything, right? Because it shows exactly what they could have had. Ugh. I keep trying to put into words like why this is so painful, and I'm just like failing. So we're gonna keep going. She decided to let the illusion continue on a while longer. She knew it was foolish. She had mixed feelings about being here and interacting with him as she had when she was younger. But she had softened up enough to not simply ignore the warmth it also made her feel. She had found it in herself to accept the seed of kindness sprouting within her. She had found it in herself to acknowledge how he felt. So she would use the dream to lead him to his next destination, under the guise of him holding her hand and leading her, out of the claws of this foolish fantasy, to be released once and for all. She would guide him back into the void, that boundless sphere of fate, so that he may live again. They set off through the fields of waving gold. She squeezed her eyes shut, envisioning the young man she once knew. And when she opened them again, he was there, holding her hand and smiling softly at her. "You know, Jacopo, I really hope we don't ever cross paths again. Nothing good could possibly come from us meeting in the next life. I'm tired of having to deal with you. I hate you. And I pray I never have to see you again. But should you wish to see me, and should that wish take priority over my own, promise you'll treat me well. And if you can manage that, then I..." The end. I think it's even past like the road not take it. Like it's almost like mourning the possibilities that didn't happen. Because like personally, I don't know that they ever could have gotten to that even had everything not happened, right? They had a lot of stuff sort of stacked against them in their reality before, the uprising, and they were separated and all of that. So would have they realistically gotten there? I have a little bit of doubts. This is like the best case scenario. It's the possibility where absolutely everything went right. And that's just devastating. All right, so I'll leave it up to you guys. You want to do any more short stories, or should we go back to Reincarnation? As I try to like deal with my feelings now so I can swap back. That's devastating. Like, all right. So just this story. All right, let's go back to Reincarnation. I was getting ready to turn around and look for somewhere else when, "Let's eat here. It's quiet and there's nobody around." And then she marched straight into the cafe, paying me no heed. Yeah, that seems like Morgana. Afternoon. The waitress sounded like she would rather be anywhere but here. Hardly an attitude befitting someone of the food service industry. There's still time to turn back. Find a place that serves food suitable for human consumption. The hell, man? Customer or not, you can't just walk in and trash the place like. Wait. Holy shit! You're the dick from yesterday! The waitress stepped down from behind the counter, slack-jawed. I imagined I was making a similarly ridiculous face. Best friends. Yeah, I mean, I'm okay, like, stepping back into another short story if you guys are interested in it. Is there anything that any other one that we should read before continuing on? I guess is maybe the question. Because we can always go back and read the others at the end. Which we will, just to reassure everyone. Oh. But they are best friends. I love Maria and Jacopo. Like, don't get me wrong. I do enjoy the plot between Jacopo and Morgana. But Jacopo and Maria are probably my favorite duo. I love a couple of people that just beat up on each other. It was the woman I had shared drinks with last night. I never would imagine this is where you worked. Talk about one hell of a coincidence. I told you we'd cross paths again, but I didn't think it'd be this soon. But wait, didn't you say you had work today? You got shit canned. Poor thing. I did not. I simply took the day off. I'm not some incompetent replaceable drone. They can't just shit can me like anyone else. The kind of dude who thinks he's irreplaceable is always the most replaceable. Watch your back. You never know when they could be coming for you. This damned woman. Okay, we'll continue on with Reincarnation then. We'll finish up Reincarnation because we keep going to other things. And then we'll finish up the short stories at the end because I think that's all we've got left after Reincarnation. I think. Until we find out that there's some other secret thing that I have not figured out. But this damned woman. Maria let out a little cackle and then turned her gaze toward the girl. Her eyes were slightly wider than usual, evidently surprised I knew the woman. Who's she? You don't look like siblings, so cousin? Niece, maybe? Um, we're not exactly family, but we first met 2 days ago. Then yesterday he took me home with him. You little... Are you trying to make me sound like... Maria beat him up. Oh yeah, like, Morgana just sitting there munching on popcorn, just watching the show. Like, how could you not just sit there and watch? And now Maria's looking at me like I'm human garbage. Officer, this man kidnapped a little girl. God damn it, stop yelling, you imbecile. And that's how I ended up temporarily taking her into my custody. I'm neither a kidnapper nor a pedophile. Understood? I get the gist, even if I don't quite follow your reasoning. I'd had the girl sit at a table by the window, then brought Maria to the back of the cafe and explained how I'd ended up in this situation. While still visibly skeptical, she didn't look like she was going to call the police as soon as I turned my back anymore. I now knew what it felt like to have my life be hanging by a thread. Christ, what did I do to deserve this? She's a runaway, though. Shouldn't you have just called the police and let them deal with her? Actually, you know what? Forget that. I'm sure you went down that path plenty on your own. Just try to get out before things get any hairier for you. That's the idea. In a few days, I'll either make her go back home or hand her off to the authorities. Good plan. You're not stupid, I don't think, so it figures you'd have something like that worked out. Assuming it does work out, that is. I don't seem to be quite myself when it comes to the girl. I would never do any of this under any other circumstances. That said, do be nice to the girl while you've got her around. She didn't run away because her life was great. Are you implying I'm treating her unkindly? I'd be surprised if that wasn't the case. I mean, you're short-fused and get bitchy and start yelling about the most trivial things. Don't try to act like you know me. She's exactly right, though, and I'm aware of how bad about that I can be. Be nice to the girl. Hey, have we had this conversation before? What? The first time we spoke was yesterday. Of course we haven't. Yeah, right. You're right. Sorry. Alright, well, you get back out there. Can't keep the princess waiting too long. Christ, princess? She was anything but. Were you able to sort things out with her? With some difficulty, yes. I'd rather you didn't deliberately invite misunderstanding like that. Yeah, of course she knows you. You two are pseudo-platonic soulmates. They really are. Like, they they belong in each other's lives, just not as lovers. What's to misunderstand? Every word of it was the truth. Context, girl, context. What if she had called the police on me? Well, that would be quite unfortunate for you. I swear to God, child, after everything I've done for you, you can't even scrounge together a scrap of consideration or gratitude? I was just warned about being nice to her. It hasn't even been 5 minutes and I've already snapped. Anyway, uh, what do you want to eat? You can ask for anything at all, whatever you want. Oh, then how about a sandwich? You don't want anything more? Some cake? A drink? Throw on as much as you want, seriously. What? Okay, now you're creeping me out. Why the sudden friendly act? What are you scheming? I'm not scheming anything. This is why I don't try to be nice. We will definitely read the rest of the short stories later. So no worries on that one. Yeah, not as lovers, only as hate fuckers. Exactly the vibe from Maria and Jacopo. Man, for an Italian, you sure are worthless when it comes to women. You sure you actually got the right race there? Positive, damn it. Whatever, I don't expect anything good out of this hole in the wall. So just bring a few plates of whatever the hell you feel like. That really how you want to talk to the girl who's going to be making your food? Prove me wrong. A restaurant that has food worth its salt also goes to the effort of looking the part. That's just how it is. Now look at this place. The furnishings don't match. There's no consistency, not a shred of aesthetic taste. Not attracting customers means no revenue. No revenue means no money with which to purchase quality ingredients. A straight path to failure. Shut up already. I'm tired of all your bitching. There's nothing I can do about it, okay? The owner's this old fart who refuses to replace anything because it all has sentimental value to him. I'm not the one who decorated. I see. So the cafe is just an elderly man's pastime. That explains it. To some degree, at least. I'm surprised you would choose to work at a place like this, though. Hey, he pays me and treats me well. This place may look like crap, but it's a living. Only real issues are I might die of boredom, and the place could shut down on me any day. Not because we're not getting customers, but the owner's getting up there in age, so... But enough about me. As you requested, I'll get you a plate of whatever and prepare something absolutely exquisite for the girl. Be back in a few. Yeah, take that. There we go. Piss me off and I'll spit in your coffee. It's probably the closest you'll ever get to an indirect kiss. I mean, look, piss her off and he's going to wear his coffee. So... That's called discrimination, you do realize. Jacopo, that's just called reacting to an asshole customer. You're quite close. Have you two known each other very long? Nope. I didn't know she existed until yesterday. She says I bumped into her once before, but I don't remember it. Whoa, why the stink eye? What, do you think I'm a player or something? Sure, I both drank with her and brought you home last night, which doesn't make me look very good on its own. But yesterday was nothing but one exceptional circumstance after the other. I've never hit it off with someone like that after only one day. God damn it, why am I making excuses for myself to this girl? I was merely shocked to discover you had made a friend after only one day. I didn't realize you were capable of being social. Or making friends at all, even. That's rich coming from you. Besides, I had plenty of friends when I was living in Italy. My social life just took a hit after moving here. Then I'm happy for you. She seems like a nice girl. Well,
I largely agree with your assessment. You should try making friends with her too. Knowing her could come in handy, if something ever comes up.
You have a point. I'll consider it.
Maybe because she's a girl too, but she's a lot more receptive of Maria than me. Maybe I'd have more luck getting through to her using Maria instead of having to fight her tooth and nail over everything. She'd probably be willing to open up more to her as well.
What you doing? Talking about me, are you?
Don't sneak up on me like that! But that was fast. Is our food ready?
I'm just bringing you your drinks. Here you are, some instant coffee. And for you, sweet little thing, I've made some herbal tea with the highest quality
chamomile leaves we have. Try to be a little more subtle with your favoritism.
Herbal tea with chamomile.
Oh, you're not a fan?
Yeah, chamomile can be a bit of an acquired taste.
Want me to grab you something else?
No, I'll have this. I'm rather fond of it, in fact, I think. Not that I've had chamomile tea before, but it kind of reminds me of days long past.
Huh?
It reminds you of something you've never done before.
I think that's called deja vu, you silly girl. Anyway, sounds good to me.
I'll throw some cookies in too, so you're not just sipping tea. We got plenty, so feel free to give me a shout if you want more.
Same goes for you if you want anything else, all right? Don't worry about coming off as rude or greedy. It's what being a kid's all about. You should know the girl hates being called a kid. I hope you enjoyed dealing with her death glare and insistence that she's actually an adult.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate your generosity.
Ugh! What a sweet girl. I can't believe you're the same girl Jacopo was over there whining at me about.
He's clearly broken in the brain.
What the hell? She's never this well behaved when it's just me. I'm loving this, ganging up on him. Yeah, there we go.
Why do I have the faintest recollection of her offering to lick my fingers?
All right, well,
I've got some food to make. Should be out pretty quick, but I'll warn you in advance. Don't expect anything super fancy from a teensy little cafe. She's a very cheerful and energetic woman.
She's not energetic. She's just loud. And I thought you didn't like people like her anyway.
Usually they make me uncomfortable, but hers is a pleasant energy.
Not what I'd call it. I guess I am going to have to consider asking Maria for help after all. Hey.
Yes?
She didn't have to force herself to stay with me. She could always put herself under Maria's care instead. It would probably be less awkward for her there too. I could even propose it to her myself if she didn't feel comfortable. I knew what I should say to her, but the words wouldn't come out. The idea of leaving her in someone else's care was repulsive to me on a deeply based level. And I had no idea why. Where the hell were these feelings coming from? I barely even knew the damn girl. Why should I care so much? It didn't matter who looked after her. And in fact, she would be better off with someone else. Yet I felt as though if I let go of her and trusted her to someone else, then we would never be this close ever again. Wait, we would never be this close ever again. That made it sound like I wasn't caring for her because she needed it, but instead using her problems as a way to prop myself up, some sick search for self-satisfaction.
What is it? You were going to say something and then...
Oh, right, sorry. I was thinking about something and lost my train of thought. Probably wasn't important anyway.
The look on your face suggested otherwise, but okay.
Forget about it. Honestly, it was nothing. Now, what I'd really like to talk about is you. I think it's about time you filled me in on some details. What were you doing in that park? Where do you really live? And why did you run away? Nothing at all? Well, I'm not gonna push, but
What's the point? What will knowing get you?
it's not about getting anything. It's just, I can't offer you advice or help you fix anything if I don't know what the problem is.
I didn't leave looking for advice, nor do I want you to try to fix anything.
Well, that's about the response I expected. Okay then. I promise I'll keep my nose out of your business. So, tell me about yourself.
Why? What point is there to you knowing anything about me?
Because because obviously by getting to know you, I can get closer to you. There doesn't need to be any more point than that. I want to know more about you, simple as that. Oh, Christ, just thinking about it makes me want to throw up. Who even talks like that?
With a sigh, she fell silent, and I couldn't bring myself to press any further. So instead, I was going to tell her to forget it, that she didn't have to say anything if she didn't want to, when she muttered a single word almost under her breath. Morgana.
Huh? I didn't catch that.
My name. It's Morgana. I hadn't told you yet, had I?
Oh, wow. So your name's Morgana, huh? That's a good, strong name. Sounds Italian too, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. My mother is French, and I've lived in France all my life. However,
She hesitated. I urged her on with a look, and after a few moments, she reluctantly continued.
my father's never been in my life. Not as far back as my memories go, at least. So there's a chance. He may be, but I don't know.
I see. And do you ever want to meet your father?
I'm not sure. He's essentially a stranger, so I have no real emotional attachment to him. In fact, I. Never mind.
She fell silent once again, leaving the in fact hanging in the air. I gave her another I see and didn't press the subject any further. I did, however, feel like I'd gotten a glimpse into where her isolation came from. Well, it's a small damn world, huh? You made fun of me for not being an Italian stereotype, but you don't exactly fit the part either, do you?
Oh, be quiet. I know I don't. Why do you seem so happy about it, though?
Yeah, exactly. So, your mother's single. Let's talk more about that. It's not that. Just realizing we may have walked the same paths, seen the same views. I feel a little sense of kinship.
I thought you didn't like Italy. You were complaining about how there's nothing there.
Huh? Oh, you've got a good memory. It's true that I don't like dealing with family stuff back home. It's all a huge pain to navigate. But the scenery can be quite nice. I know I said there's nothing there, but I do still fondly remember the beautiful nature on that island. Ocean as far as the eye can see. I rather liked that. And then there was this golden wheat field, though I have no idea where it was anymore. Or wait, maybe the field was just in my dreams and not anywhere back home? Hmm? Forget it. The point is, there's some gorgeous scenery there.
That sounds nice. I'd like to see it for myself someday, maybe.
And you can. It's not even a 3 hour flight from here. The only limit to where you can go these days is your imagination. Hell, I could take you there myself if you want.
What? You would take me?
Uh, Try not to overthink that. I just mean, I imagine your understanding of the world is very limited. Stepping out beyond your own sphere is a valuable life experience, and something I think might be good to expose you to. Um, did I upset her?
Oh, so you want to help me experience new things? Well, I suppose I can look into it.
What is there to look into? That said, it's still much more receptive than she would have been yesterday, so we're making progress. And I think I even caught her smiling a little. She looks so much better with a smile on her face. I'd love to get a better look at one that lasts more than a split second sometime.
Why are you staring at me? Is there something on my face?
No, you always look so dour, and I was just thinking about how it'd be nice if you smiled a little more. It, yeah, Jacopo, this is a great place to go in conversation. Did you know you'd be prettier if you smiled? That absolutely makes every girl happier.
Uh,
You wouldn't be so unpleasant to look at. Jacopo! This man has zero riz.
what? I can't believe you, you insensitive brute.
God, why am I so incapable of just saying what I think? Drive safe. A little bit later, Maria returned with 2 sandwiches.
The one she set in front of Morgana was at least 2 times too large for a light afternoon meal. Morgana stared at the triumphant stack of meats and cheeses and vegetables, unsure what to do with it. Meanwhile, all I received was a simple panino, containing nothing but a few slices of ham and cheese. I considered filing a complaint, but Morgana ended up giving me what she couldn't eat of hers, at which point I stopped caring enough to feel slighted. The cafe remained empty all through lunch. On some level, it was kind of a shame because the food wasn't bad, but it also meant we could talk with Maria since she didn't have anyone to wait on. As a dining establishment, it was indisputably a failure, but it couldn't have been a more perfect location for us. Time seemed to pass faster than it should as the three of us talked. Morgana didn't speak much, but she never once seemed bored, sometimes even giving a little laugh at something Maria said. And then the next thing I realized, the sunlight shining through the window had turned orange. Never before had I spent so much time in a cafe. Usually, I only stayed long enough to inhale some caffeine or calories. The very idea of relaxing seemed like a negligent misuse of time to me. But this was probably how you were supposed to patronize these sorts of establishments. So relaxed and refreshed, we decided it was time to head home. As we got up to leave, Maria gave me a disappointed pout and said, "Come on, you don't have to go. Come back again soon, okay? I guarantee there won't be anyone else here." She gave us a little wave and then we headed out. I hoped business would pick up a bit, if only because it seemed like Maria was going to die from boredom before long. Well, funny story about what happens to her. With that, our sightseeing tour came to an end, and we went to take care of our original goal, shopping. I took Morgana to a moderately large supermarket near my apartment, and she was astounded by the wide array of products sold. Apparently, she'd never been in one before, which only added to my concern about what kind of life she'd led. Though maybe she just lived somewhere really rural that didn't have big stores and there wasn't anything more to it. I asked Morgana what she wanted for dinner, but all she gave me was a non-committal anything. Then I asked if she had any favorite foods, to which she responded with, "I'll eat anything." It was easier to cook for someone if they gave you something to work with. Evidently, though, she wasn't just being shy and genuinely had no wants or preferences. I feel her because I am also like that, and it drives everyone crazy. And I'm so sorry, but also I'm so not picky. If it tastes good, I'm in. Add to that how thin she was and how little she seemed to eat, and I began wondering if she'd ever even had a proper home cooked meal. She obviously wasn't the dieting type either. In fact, when Maria had brought her that oversized sandwich, she'd tried to force herself to finish it. She gave off the impression of a nun who'd lived her entire life cut off from earthly pleasures. Or perhaps a saint, forbidden from indulging in worldly desires. I hope that one day I might be able to hear her express some kind of desire, be it something she wanted, some food she craved, or some activity she was interested in. When we were done at the market, we went to the bookstore to buy some movies. However, most of what they had on the shelves was of the top 10 bestsellers variety. I wasn't interested in mass market fluff myself and would have preferred something literary or artistic or even educational like a documentary. Okay, so Jacopo's fucking boring. But I knew I wasn't going to find that at a common neighborhood bookstore. Being mass market didn't automatically make a film bad, mind you. It required great talent to write and direct something capable of resonating with so many people. Lots of careful consideration had to go into every element of production to ensure it was enjoyable and understandable to everyone who saw it. It wasn't something just anyone could pick up and do. Now, that wasn't to say that I didn't think Morgana could understand more challenging films. In fact, she seemed like the kind of person who wouldn't enjoy pop culture. But I also felt like what she needed right now was some time to just turn off and enjoy some mindless entertainment. That was a lot of words to justify why we got a normal movie. Like, come on, Jacopo. It's okay, man. We can watch Fast and the Furious, like, 29. We watched one movie before dinner, a classic animated film, and another after, a live action comedy. Neither were things I would watch on my own. But even at the funny parts, Morgana didn't so much as smirk. After a while, I began to feel like an idiot laughing all by myself. So when it was over, I asked her if she didn't like the movie, and no, I enjoyed it. I was impressed by the actors' selflessness in their attempts to make the audience laugh. The world is a better place thanks to their great sacrifices.
Her response was utterly baffling. Who watched movies for that?
Additionally, your commentary throughout the film about the actors' performances, the motifs used, and the director's past works was somewhat irritating, to be honest.
Damn. Well, I'm sorry, geez. I won't talk during a movie again, you can be sure of that.
It was rather annoying, but also, it's kind of fun to learn things I don't know. I'm ignorant about everything. I don't know what's out there, what's fun, what things people have made and done. So teach me. You know these sorts of things, don't you? Then you can share some of that knowledge with me.
Okay, so Jacopo has never shown that he's anything other than a wet blanket, except for like a few times that we've seen him with Maria and Gratian, even in the past. So yeah, Morgana, you picked the perfect person to do that.
Morgana was staying at my apartment tonight as well, once again using one of my shirts as oversized loungewear. When I mentioned regretting not buying her clothes of her own, she said, I don't mind the shirt. It's perfectly functional. It would be a waste of money to buy something new.
A couple of sets of loungewear weren't going to break the bank, but I quickly found myself relenting. That I was even bothered was proof of how much of a disgrace I was.
Besides, you promised you wouldn't touch me without permission, so even if it isn't a perfect fit, I have nothing to worry about.
Christ, this girl was devilish. I cannot imagine that's very comfortable to sleep in with that collar.
If I truly am, then I have a father somewhere. One night, I overheard my mother muttering something. At the time, I assumed it was just a dream, but if what she said was true, my father was a mere vagrant, a man whose face I never once saw, whose name I never heard. Frankly, I'm not sure. I wouldn't know what to say even if I did. He might not even know I exist. It didn't sound like he had any interest in staying with my mother, which does not speak particularly well of his character. If he had chosen to stay instead of abandoning her, then she wouldn't have had to lie about having a virgin birth. Maybe we could have even been a normal family, and the entire course of my life could have been different. Why is that your first reaction? You're not going to hunt him down and give him a piece of your mind? No. Any form of violence is forbidden.
I never have to do this. Crap. Well, just don't go to that site because I can't remember how to get into mod view. Um,
Not even if it's for my sake. Too many people have been hurt already. Which isn't to say I don't understand what you meant. When you said the world would trample all over you if you didn't have the strength to fight back. As children, we were both helpless to fight back against a cruel world. But I stand by what I said. No more.
yeah, okay. Um,
I once believed you to be a weak man, but I've realized I was mistaken. I now know you have more than enough strength, enough to take the lives of countless men. Some part of me always knew, but that's all the more reason. I don't want you to hurt anyone else ever again, to take any more lives. I will have no choice but to deem you utterly irredeemable if you break that promise. Understood? What? No, that doesn't mean I think you presently have redeeming qualities. Have you lost your mind? Honestly, this is not the time for silly do you like me games. Don't tell me you're waiting for an answer. You're never getting one. What? Fine. If you want to know what I think so badly. No, I don't much care for you. That dream again. Fields of wheat, stretching out like an ocean. Talk about my unseen father. Hadn't almost the same thing come up this afternoon? Could it be a coincidence? In the dream, there was someone standing before me, a silhouette of a man, his face imperceptible. But whoever it was, they meant a lot to me. If only I could see them again. Morgana spent the following day at my apartment as well. It was a sunny day, and it was a sunny Sunday, and we started it with a walk. Took a brief detour to the cafe Maria worked at. Yay. Did some light shopping. Then went home and watched a movie. Concerned she might get bored doing all the same things again, after the movie we played video games. I wasn't much of a gamer myself, though. I mostly used the console to watch movies. So I bought the digital version of some racing game and we had at it. We were both absolutely terrible, which helped keep things fun and not overly competitive. In our final race, Morgana's car spun out and she ended up driving backwards through the course, causing me to laugh so hard I dropped my controller. After that, she refused to play with me anymore, or even talk to me for a good while. Monday morning, I had to go to work, and it was the first time in my life that it ever felt like an obligation, a burden. Morgana and I spent a good 90% of our time arguing about something or other, but on some level, it seemed I'd actually come to enjoy those conversations. And having to leave that behind for work only made me realize I wasn't working because I enjoyed it, but because I had convinced myself it was all I could do. It was a way to ensure no one would be able to claim I hadn't accomplished anything when I returned to Sicily. So no one could look down on me. So no one could challenge me. I'd always believed that money and power were all one needed to get whatever they wanted in life, and I'd forfeited any semblance of a personal life to achieve that. Even now, I wasn't entirely convinced that belief was wrong either. What things did modern society place the most value in, after all? Personal assets and social standing. The more time I spent with Morgana, though, the more these pillars of my life wavered. She didn't care for fancy restaurants and was more than happy to eat some cheap meal that only took 10 minutes to throw together. She found beauty in the ordinary, not just things designed to appear beautiful. Filtered through her eyes, the world seemed gentler than the one I knew. Which was especially curious as she herself was anything but gentle, mercilessly sharp tongued and aggressively aloof. Yet because of her, the wind on my cheeks felt warmer now. It put my heart at ease in a way that I couldn't help but think I'd felt this way before, long, long ago. That it wasn't arbitrary, that there was an explanation for the peace she provided me. I stopped doing regular overtime at work. Where before I had written everyone off as unreliable and useless, deciding it would be best to simply handle everything myself, I started delegating some of that work back to my subordinates. Everything was shocked at the sudden change in my demeanor, and many were upset at the reduced efficiency that resulted from it. But it was their work to begin with, so they had no grounds to complain. People were going to be talking about me behind my back, that much was inevitable when their workload increased. Even more so considering I was already disliked for how often I yelled at and chewed people out. But I didn't have the time to bother myself with other people's opinions. Before, I might have been worried it would affect my prospects of promotion, but now I wasn't especially concerned. I was doing what I needed to, and not a single thing more. My priority now was getting home as quickly as possible, so I could teach Morgana about the world.
How long is she staying with us?
And then, before I realized it, 2 weeks had passed since I'd taken her in on that rainy night. Still, she was staying at my apartment. Sometimes I'd ask her with a sigh, "When are you planning to go home already?" To which she'd respond, puffing her cheeks, "You're free to kick me out whenever you please." Except I couldn't, which was why we were in this situation in the first place. Did she challenge me knowing I wouldn't call her bluff? That I didn't actually want to throw her out anymore. Over the past couple weeks, I'd bought more books and movies than I could count so she could keep herself occupied while I was at work. And shocking even myself, I'd given her a spare key as well. Something was clearly loose in my head. Doing things for her made me feel good, though. And as insane as I rationally knew I was, I couldn't fight how it made me feel. Over and over and over again, I argued with myself. But never once did good sense win out. I must confess, I'd grown quite fond of this new life. It was a Thursday, a little over 2 weeks since I'd met Morgana. The first day, all I'd managed to do was force an umbrella onto her. Never could I have imagined from that encounter that we'd effectively be living together soon after. Not enough time had passed to really reminisce about how far we'd come, but nevertheless, the change was undeniable. Damn it, how is it already 8:30? So much for no more overtime. It's hard to believe 8:30 feels late to me now. She's probably already eaten by now. Surely she's not waiting for me. Did she try to cook for us? Hey, I'm home. Morgana? Hello? Morgana? Are you there? Okay, I went cuter than they're going because where the fuck is she? I couldn't find her anywhere in the apartment. She wasn't asleep, and she wasn't in the shower either. She was just gone, as if the last 2 weeks had all been a dream. We weren't family, nor were we really living together, but I'd gotten so used to having someone there to snark at me when I got home that it felt off to be greeted by silence. My first thought was that something had happened to her. She was hurt or in danger. But the apartment was just how I'd left it. The door was still locked, and there was no sign of anyone breaking in. She had left of her own volition, locking the door behind her. Could she have gotten into trouble somewhere else then? For God's sake. And I've got no way of getting in touch with her either. I should have bought her a phone and a spare in case she lost it. Do I go looking for her? Call the police, maybe? Okay, slow down. Why was I acting like she needed to be here when I got back? After how many times I'd told her to get out, I'd never meant it as anything more than banter, but how was she supposed to know my intentions? Wouldn't it have made more sense for her to have just gone home, as opposed to something actually happening to her? That I was the only one enjoying our time together and she had finally gotten tired of me for good? I mean, thinking back, she'd clearly always seemed annoyed, constantly complaining, never smiling, telling me who even knows how many times I should burn in hell. What if I'd misread her and she wasn't joking? And every day here was piling more and more stress. As much as I had continued to insist she was a child, it wasn't like she was primary school or middle school age. She was old enough to think and make decisions for herself. In fact, judging from the short time we'd been together, she was very mature for her age. So she wasn't going to be completely helpless if something did happen to her. So I guess that's that. She's through with me then, huh? I wish she would have at least said goodbye. But I guess to her we were just strangers, so.
Jacopo has already made up this entire scenario in his head. What if she's just out late? She's got a spare key.
I wasn't so much angry as I felt bummed. I tossed the movie I'd bought over lunch onto the counter, then collapsed into the couch. She'd always sat right here, in this spot. She was small, barely took up any space, but the hole left in her absence felt larger than life. The room was uncomfortably quiet now, and it felt like the temperature had dropped several degrees as well. This is just a return to the status quo. It's nothing to get upset about, you fool. Guess I'll make myself dinner then. I stood motionless in the kitchen, unable to scrounge together the motivation to make anything. I wasn't cooking for anyone else, so it didn't have to be fancy. Just warm up a can of spaghetti sauce and toss it over some pasta. Easy. Huh? Was that the door? Oh, hello. I thought you might be a bit longer tonight. Making dinner for yourself, I see. She stood before me with a grocery bag in her hands. I stood before her, utterly stupefied. She frowned that oh so familiar frown. She didn't have to say a word, and I could still hear her mocking me clear as day. I felt like all the wind had been sucked out of me, and with it the ability to lie. Yeah, I thought you'd gone home, so I. Hmm? Yes, I did just come home. We weren't on the same page. She seemed to think that by home I meant. Oh. It finally hit her that without even missing a beat, she'd called my apartment her home. Well, what are you laughing about? It was just a slip of the tongue, okay? You don't need to make such a big deal out of it. Yeah, I know. It wasn't on purpose. But you're still laughing. I don't understand you at all. Yeah, it's okay. I don't understand myself one gosh dang bit either. Gosh dang? Uh, uh, God damn it. Now it was my turn for a slip of the tongue. I hadn't talked like that in years. Just to pretend I didn't say that. You didn't hear anything, okay? I think I prefer that to the alternative. I mean, well, I don't know why you feel the need to force yourself to blaspheme so often, and you would be much more approachable if you lightened up your language some. I'd appreciate if you did so around me at least. If, uh, if I feel the need, maybe. She smiled, a rare occurrence, but I couldn't bring myself to look her in the eyes. I absolutely wanted to take in every second of it, though. God, I was acting like a damn child. But it was getting to be impossible to deny what was going on. I was a 26-year-old man, and she a good decade younger. It was wrong on so many levels to have these feelings about her. But I was entranced with Morgana. You are allowed to sleep in your own bed, you know. I was getting ready to head to the living room for bed when Morgana interrupted me. Did this girl understand the meaning of her words? Can we not do this, Morgana? She was telling me I could sleep in the same bed as her. You can't be getting much rest sleeping on the couch every night. And it's not like I'm going to be a distraction, am I? Th- that's not the issue. It's wrong for us to sleep in the same bed. There's no excuse. I don't follow your logic. It's wrong, so it's wrong. That's all there is to it. And I think it's wrong for you to have to go to work with bags under your eyes. You've been having trouble getting up in the morning lately. Well, you pay more attention to me than I thought. If you're so concerned, you can sleep on the couch then. No way. I prefer the bed. Then why are you. If you insist you absolutely want to sleep on the couch, then who am I to stop you? But I'm going to bed now, so good night. Oh, this isn't awkward at all. It's fine. We're totally going to sleep like this. Somehow Morgana managed to wear me down, and now we were both in bed. The same bed, because there's only one bed. This is a fan fiction prompt. I was pretty sure I'd rest better on the couch than here, both physically and mentally. To start with, being able to sense her presence behind me was incredibly distracting, and then there was the worry that I might accidentally roll over and crush her. But worst of all was her body heat. I wasn't accustomed to being able to feel anyone so close. Don't you dare turn around, okay? I don't want to have to spend all night with your face in mine, says the girl who insisted I use the bed tonight. Christ, okay, I won't turn around, so get some damn sleep. She was still as the corpse behind me, but I could feel a tension in the air nonetheless. Yeah, this is so not comfortable for anyone. What was she getting worked up about? Jeez. The longer the silence continued, the more uncomfortable it grew. I sighed, letting it hang in the air before breaking it with a, "Hey." She lurched slightly at the sound of my voice. Then, after another brief pause, she responded with a, "What? If you can't sleep, maybe we can talk for a little?" I don't mind, but what would we talk about? Hmm. How about you finally tell me why it is you ran away from home? Oh, yeah, just light conversation before bed. You really want to know? Of course I do. So you can give me your unsolicited advice? Oh, yeah, I did say something like that at the cafe a couple weeks ago. It wasn't what I wanted to say, though. But maybe now, with her this close, I can stop putting on so much of an act. Maybe I can treat you a little better. Because I'm sincerely curious. I don't want to push my views onto you. I just want to get to know you better. Is curiosity such a bad thing? No, it's not. But my reasons are boring and trite. The truth is only going to disappoint you. I'm not asking because I want to hear a good story. Do you believe in God? What? God? Where did that come from? I'm asking about you, not. Just answer the question. Honestly, no, I don't believe in God. Not that I explicitly believe there isn't one either. But true believers are a minority in this day and age, especially in first world countries. Churches have largely become venues for weddings and funerals. Right. Not many people believe in God in modern times. But I do. I believe in the Heavenly Father who watches me from above. I believe He has the power to cause miracles. And I believe He has a divine plan, which we mortals are incapable of straying from. Many generations ago, that was normal, and those without faith were burned at the stake. But that's no longer true anymore. Today, if you say you love God, people will think you're old fashioned. Or worse yet, incapable of rational thought at all. Morgana, if you're about to say we should just return to the Dark Ages where were getting burned at the stake, I think we're going to have a divergence of opinions here. She was right. These days, people weren't punished for being faithless or believing in other gods, as would have happened in ancient times. And for that, the world was a more peaceful and accepting place now. But these societal rules for acceptance had not gone away, merely transformed over the centuries. While you wouldn't be burned at the stake anymore, those with beliefs deemed unacceptable were still made into outcasts, something I was guilty of doing as well. I frequently found myself frustrated at people who didn't see the world the same as me. I was closed minded and unable to adapt to different ideas. Instead, I threw them to the curb, making no attempt to reconcile or understand, refusing to examine my own beliefs. When we first met, I probably would have laughed in her face if she'd told me she believed in God. The Heavenly Father, His divine plan? Fantasy nonsense, all of it. I wouldn't have even given her the time of day. My mother is a much more devout believer than me, though. Or perhaps you could say she depended on her faith. I told you about my father, right? And how I've never met him before? Well, supposedly the divorce was very difficult for my mother. So she took to attending a local church, bringing me with her. There she found fellowship, relief from her loneliness, salvation. There I had a home, a place to learn right from wrong, and a place to confess my sins. What would a kid your age have to confess? Isn't that the whole thing for people old enough to take responsibility for their actions? It wasn't anything I did. I have the black mark of sin on my very soul. Excuse me, what? My soul did not pass through the gate of God's judgment before entering a new mortal body. It is still blemished by the sins of my previous life. Okay. So they told me I must atone for those sins in this life. Who the hell told you that? The priest at the church? Listen to me, Morgana. You're allowed to believe whatever you want. I'm not going to get on your case for being abnormally pious. But I draw the line at atoning for something you never did. It's ridiculous to think you're responsible for actions taken in a past life. Well, Jacopo, you're currently still trying to atone for yours, so. Reincarnation blather is bad enough on its own. But there's no reason to let vague notions of karma dictate your life now. At first, I felt the same way as you. Why should I have to pay for sins I have no knowledge of? But the bishop and my mother, they told me that the hideous scars on my body were evidence of the sins on my soul. I saw many doctors about them, but not one could identify the cause, which meant it couldn't be a physical ailment, but a sign from God, a curse to always remind me of how tainted my soul is. That's absolute horseshit. Your mother and that bishop are swindling you. And I probably would have agreed with you if I didn't have these memories that don't belong to me. What? Memories that don't. That golden field of wheat immediately popped into my mind. I had memories that didn't belong to me, too. In them, a hazy silhouette of a girl. In these memories, I cast a curse upon others for centuries, and I brought suffering to the good people around them as well. I spread nothing but hatred. I resided in a dismal gray mansion with the air of death filling its halls, and in it I trapped the souls of three men. Three men and the people closest to them, condemned for eternity for no reason other than their association. You think I'm crazy. I can see it. But think whatever you want, because I know how it sounds. Souls and curses and haunted mansions. It's all childish silliness. It was childish and silly. It was the kind of fantasy nonsense that had no place outside fiction. But I couldn't carry the words from my mind to my mouth. A chill ran down my spine, like a bony finger sliding down the skin, until it stopped at my heart. It was as if it was trying to say Morgana was talking about me. My mind was just playing tricks. There wasn't any evidence, but the thought wouldn't leave me. Is something the matter? Did you fall asleep? No, of course not. I'm not going to doze off in the middle of a conversation. I was just thinking about. Never mind. Go on. No matter how crazy anyone thinks it sounds, I still have these memories. I remember cursing those men for centuries, destroying their souls. And while they're not terribly vivid, I feel an inexplicable certainty that they are indeed real. So when they told me my scars were punishment for my sins, all the pieces fell into place. I made the three men atone for their sins, but I neglected to do anything about my own. So that's the purpose I've been given in this life, to acknowledge and repent for my past transgressions. Assuming everything you said is true, and you did do all of that, I still don't think you have anything to atone for. You had a reason to curse those men. They'd done something deserving of your ire. It's they who should be paying. Morgana wasn't the kind of girl to hate someone for an insignificant slight. While she could be vicious and caustic sometimes, she wasn't actually cruel. She was a sweet, selfless girl with a big heart. And the proof was right here in her insisting she needed to atone for sins she had no direct hand in. Because that was who she was. She would carry the whole world on her back if she could. So when she said she cursed three men for eternity, there was necessarily more than a minor grudge. Something bad enough had happened to push her to take such drastic measures. Someone had mistreated her so badly as to deserve an eternity of torment. Someone had. But regardless, it's stupid for anyone to have to pay for the mistakes of a previous life. And you shouldn't let that dictate how you live now. Exactly. Whoever you punished absolutely had it coming. They probably had tiny dicks too. Literally, like, Jacopo, be very careful what you say here. Was that true, though? Obviously, she didn't need to atone for anything. But what about those who had hurt her? If they were alive now, too, would I be able to say the same thing about them? Was it right to just let them move on? God, where was this train of thought even going? I had no idea anymore. For whatever reason, I was proceeding under the assumption that reincarnation and past lives were real, which had no scientific foundation. Was Morgana rubbing off on me? I needed to cool my head. There was no such thing as reincarnation. These memories I had of places I'd never been and things I'd never done were all fantasy. How's any of that supposed to be relevant, though? How does it lead to you sleeping in a park?
Be patient. I've always believed that because of my transgressions, I have a responsibility to accept whatever happens to me. But something happened that I couldn't possibly bring myself to accept, and so I ran away. Because that was the simplest, most painless way to handle it.
So, what happened? I didn't have to see her face to know she was faltering, unsure if she wanted to continue. I should have told her she didn't have to force herself, but I couldn't bring myself to stop her. I wanted to get to the root of the problem. I needed to know what she was going through. Not out of some excessive degree of care for her, though, but largely for my own personal satisfaction. After a long silence, she muttered in a voice so soft a pin dropping would drown it out.
I I'm of no use to my mom.
Did, did your mother actually say that to you?
My mom my mother recently remarried to a man she met at the church. He's religious, so of course he's a good man.
Yeah, of course. There's never been religious bad guys. She was mumbling absent-mindedly and didn't seem to be hearing me at all. This wasn't like her. She was always very direct when she spoke. It was making me uneasy. A shadowy figure seemed to tower over me, so I blurted something out without thinking to try and chase it off. Being religious doesn't make one a good person. That's not how it works. There are bad people everywhere. Not even heaven is an exception. Please, tell me what happened, Morgana. The longer she stayed silent, the more overpowering my anxiety grew. Why wouldn't she answer me? Why wouldn't she tell me? A black fog swirled around me, slowly filling the room. A black poison coursed through my veins, infecting my entire body. Did he do something unspeakable to you? Boundless rage swelled up within me, too great for me to restrain. Because if he did, I'll fucking kill him.
Calm down. He didn't hit me. He didn't touch me. He didn't do any of the things you're worried about.
And just like that, she pacified the hatred rising within me, leaving me aghast at my own reaction. Had I just seriously entertained the thought of killing a man? And for what? Because I jumped to the worst possible conclusion? A completely baseless one at that. I wasn't being reasonable. I was acting like a feral dog. I was seconds from ripping a man's throat out for setting foot in my territory. It was absurd. It didn't matter how enchanted by her I was. That wasn't reason enough to murder her stepfather. I like to hope I had at least that much of my sanity intact.
All he did was tell the truth. He's in the right and I'm in the wrong.
Stop beating around the bush. If all he did was tell the truth, you wouldn't have run away. There we go. I'll cut off his arm, lock him in a tower, and feed his blood to people if he did anything bad to you. I know that sounds oddly specific, but it's fine. Don't read into it.
I suppose, maybe. He told me that I sickened him. The sound of my voice, the color of my eyes, the way I act, but most of all, the hideous scars on my body. He says he's physically repulsed by everything about me. He married my mother because he loved her, not because he cared about me, so I guess I only served to get between them. Or perhaps my entire existence was offensive to him. He's told me many times that the world would be a better place without me, that everyone would be happier if I'd never been born.
As a reminder, I still think her mother deserves so much more shit than she got. Like, I know we keep focusing on the father that left, but also the mother was awful. So, I don't really know which is worse. How the hell is that telling the truth? Are you implying you deserve verbal beatings from your father figure because of some perceived sins committed in a previous life? A grown man has no place talking to a child like that, let alone his goddamn stepdaughter. He's the one in the wrong here on all accounts. And your mother just lets him deride you like that?
My mother, she supports him in all his decisions, and I support her in that. She raised me as a single mother for so long.
She deserves this chance to be happy. Yeah, but she just got married to an absolute fucking asshole.
So I don't want to do anything to sabotage that.
You deserve to be happy just as much as she does.
God teaches that the righteous must place the needs of others before their own.
Who cares what? Oh, for Christ's sake. You have no problem telling me to burn in hell. Surely you have enough vitriol to spare for them. I don't get it. Why stand up for the man who deserves your anger the most?
Because he's family.
Being family doesn't give you a free pass to do whatever the hell you want, and someone being family doesn't obligate you to love them. Of course, the church wasn't going to agree with me. You were supposed to unconditionally love your family, even if they weren't showing you any love in return. I would have taken the caustic, venom-tongued Morgana over this meek, self-sacrificing side absolutely any day. No matter how you choose to deny it, that is abuse. Words can do as much damage as a fist. Tell me, how old are you? None of this I'm in my 20s crap. I want you to tell me the truth.
16.
As I'd suspected, she was a full decade younger than me. But having actual confirmation made it that much more real. It sickened me that a 16-year-old girl had to live like that. She was in an age where she still needed her parents, and yet neither of them were there for her. Exactly, they don't deserve you. Morgana, you're better than them. Do you go to school?
I did before running away. I'd never missed a day, or even been late.
All right, then you should keep going. You'll have a lot more options if you graduate high school. And once you have, move out straight away. That's what your asshole of a stepfather wants anyway. I'm not telling you to do this for your family's sake, though, but for yours. Don't let him tear your life to shreds.
But, but what would I even do once I'm out of the house? I don't have to tell you how little about the world I know. I have no goals, no aspirations, and no idea where to find any either.
You don't need to know what you want immediately. Finding it's a process. There's a whole wide world out there that you've never had the opportunity to explore. And you have me here. You can come back here as often as you want while you're working on graduating. In time, you'll find something you want to do, and I'll help you do it. Is that not good enough? Do you think there's nothing I can do to help?
You're certainly not the best for the job. You get impatient and frustrated whenever I'm trying to feel my way around, and you like to ramble on and on about useless trivia. You're the meanest teacher I've ever had.
I I I'll work on that.
I'm kidding. As long as you don't shout, you're fine as you are.
Oh, well, that's a relief.
Mm. Until now, I never knew that having someone get upset on your behalf could take so much weight off your shoulders.
Well, I'll happily get upset at anyone if it makes you feel better. Luckily for us, I'm told I do have a bit of a temper.
Please keep your temper in check. I fear you might actually attack someone if you get too angry.
I would never. At least not where you had to see it.
I'd prefer you didn't hurt anyone regardless of whether I'm watching. I trust you'll do the right thing, though. After all, you are kind at heart, whether you show it or not.
Now, that's the last thing I expected to hear from you. Is the world going to end tomorrow or something?
I take it back. You're not kind at all. You're just obnoxious and nosy.
I need to learn when to keep my mouth shut.
Thank you. Good night.
Of course. Good night, Morgana. And sweet dreams. As I'd feared, her situation was far from ideal. Hopefully, she was able to find a glimmer of hope after our conversation. Family troubles weren't something that went away overnight, though, and for all I knew, things were much worse than she'd let on, to the point that maybe even graduating high school was unrealistic. If that were the case, going back to school might not have been the best advice after all. All I could do was pray that things weren't that bad. My advice was too vague and general to actually fix anything. But that was the best I could do for someone who was essentially still a stranger. Her family was a complete black box. I could see only the outcome, none of the process, and it frustrated me to no end.
So you're going to look for a different way to be a fool then? Did you hear a single word I said? Why do I even bother? So, what madness is brewing in that hollow skull of yours now?
I'm going to win your heart.
That was even worse than I imagined. You're possibly the world's biggest fool. Oh, what is it now? You want me to call you by your name? Why would I waste my breath?
Listen to how many times I'm saying your name.
You're not yourself today. You're never so forward. It's not right. Perhaps you ate something moldy. Besides, your name is just another word. It's nothing to get so worked up about. What are you, a child?
Are you disappointed in me?
I never said that. I'm, uh, I'm not going to call you by your name, understood? For heaven's sake. Let's change the subject. The way you're silently staring at me is making my skin crawl. So, the lute. I would like you to teach me how to play the lute. Why? Is there something wrong with me wanting to know how to play? I suppose it is unusual, perhaps. I never had a chance to learn much of anything, though. I know little of how people normally entertain themselves. So I want you to catch me up on what I missed. And don't get upset if I'm a slow study. You do have an impossibly short fuse, after all. Perhaps, perhaps it would have been better if we had done this sooner. I want you, I want you to forget everything I've said. This is a realm where nothing bad ever happens, right? So I'd like to indulge in this childish dream for a little while longer.
Oh, you foolish, foolish child. Dreams don't last. You always wake up at the end. And the sweeter the dream, the more bitter reality tastes when you have to return. But you know that better than anyone, don't you?
It's the witch back. All right, with that, I think we're gonna end here for tonight. Yeah, Jacopo, she just told you she's 18, or sorry, 16. Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that. So next stream is Tuesday, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. I don't think I have any announcements. As a reminder, if you're watching this on Twitch, there is a link to our YouTube channel below, so please check it out. It's got all of our old videos on there. So if you need to catch up on anything, please feel free. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. Be back on Tuesday. So have a good night.
Bye.